Hey everyone, thank you for watching. Today's video I'm really excited to do. I'm going to be ranking all of my Colourpop palettes. So I really quite enjoy ranking makeup. I have a whole playlist. I will link it down below. I have eyeshadows in there. Most recently I ranked all of my concealers in my collection, which was 18 different concealers. And actually how this video came about is I have a handful of Colourpop palettes that I need to review. I need to follow up from doing like first impression style videos with them. And I thought, why not rank them? And then I realized that I actually only have 8 Colourpop palettes in my collection and I had to review 4, so I was going to rank 4, so I thought why not just rank all 8 and have some fun with it. So that is what we are going to be doing today. The newer palettes that I still need to do my reviews on, so I'll incorporate in here, are the Main Squeeze, also the Misunderstood. This was the Villains palette, the California Love, and also the Honey palette. And then the other palette that I have in my collection from Colourpop is I have the Dream Street palette. I also have the Perception palette in collaboration with Makeup Shayla, the It's My Pleasure palette, and the Sweet Talk palette. So I'm going to be ranking all 8 of these and giving reviews on some of those newer ones to my collection. So if you're interested, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So first up, starting at number 8, or the one that I like the least out of my Colourpop collection, that one is actually the Misunderstood palette from the Villains collection that Colourpop did in collaboration with Disney. So inside, this is what the palette looks like. I do not believe this palette is available anymore. It was limited edition because of the collaboration with Disney, and I was just on the Colourpop website as I'm filming this, which is on Friday. I didn't see this one. I saw the Princess one still available, but I did not see the Villains. So inside you have 15 different shades in here. There is no mirror in this palette. I did get this one sent to me. My Colourpop palettes are just kind of a like, some of them I purchased myself, some of them I did receive in PR. I did receive this one from Colourpop, and this wasn't one that I was considering purchasing myself. I didn't really feel like a lot of the shades inside really called to me. I just wasn't super intrigued by this one, but when I got it, I showed that I got it in PR. I got requested to do some looks with it. So this is one that I still needed to do some reviews with, so I'll add in a few photos of me with the different looks that I have done recently. And I feel like I did like the looks that I've created with this one. You know, I thought that they were pretty. I thought some of the shimmers in here were really quite nice, like especially the shimmers that speak a little bit more to me. Mongrels, Flotsam, Underworld, even Pain and Panic, you know, some of these lighter tones, some of the kind of more the rosy shimmers, bronzy shimmers, I really do like those. There's 2 brown mattes in here, Tragic and Devious. You also do have, I'm gonna try to hold it this way, the Fates is a really nice deep blue. I actually used that for like a pop of color on my lower lash line one day, which I did like. So overall, like I don't mind this formula. Like I like the Colourpop pressed formula. I think that's nice. But when it comes to the palettes that I really want, or the palettes I'm going to rank higher, they typically have the majority of shades inside the palette that I really want to wear, that I really want to use, and I use really consistently. And like this entire bottom row, I just don't really wear these shades a lot. They're not really for me. But like it's a pretty palette. It's just, out of the 8 that I have from Colourpop, like my top 4, I would say, I really love. And even my top 2, I had such a hard time deciding between, but this was one that I looked at all my palettes and I was like, number 8 is going to go to the Villains, because I just don't feel very inspired by the palette and I just don't reach for it a ton, and that's, you know, something that you want to have with your eyeshadow palettes, I guess. But that's why coming in at number 8 is the Misunderstood palette. Coming in at number 7, this is also a newer palette to me. This is the California Love palette. I did also receive this in PR from Colourpop, and I think that it's a very pretty palette. It's a very neutral palette, and it is kind of more of a warm toned brown eyeshadow palette. You have a really nice gold glitter in here, which is quite pretty. You also have a pressed glitter shadow. That one is quite a fun glitter. I'm not like die hard about having glitters in my palettes. I just don't reach for them a lot. I tend to go for more of like my liquid glitters if I'm really wanting to do a glitter, like Stila, Urban Decay, Pixie, something like that. But I think that it's nice. But overall, like I think this is a nice palette. Again, Colourpop has a great formula in here. In this one you have 12 different shades. No mirror in this one, but it's just kind of like that, kind of like your basic staple palette, which is definitely not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. But again, I kind of opened this and I'm like, oh, you know, like I feel like maybe I'll kind of do some of the same looks with this one, or just won't be able to switch it up as much. And I've noticed just with playing with some of the new palettes I've gotten from Colourpop or other brands, I just don't find myself like wanting to really reach into this one a lot, because I'm like, you know, like it's good and I like the quality and everything, but I'm not like, oh yes, can't wait to play with that California Love. I wonder maybe if this one came out more in the fall, maybe I would feel a little bit differently about it. Because I feel like this is more of a fall themed palette, and this was a part of their summer collection, and this doesn't really scream summer to me pretty much at all. But again, nice palette. It just doesn't get me super hyped up, you know? And then moving over to number 6. This one, I don't know, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of surprises in this video, but maybe. This is also a new palette to me. This is my newest one from Colourpop. This is the Honey palette. So I purchased this one myself from the Colourpop website. So it's a 9-pan palette. It does have the mirror in it. So Colourpop does these monochromatic palettes. You saw in my intro that I do have, you know, a few in my collection here. I was really excited when I saw the yellow palette because I do quite like yellow looks. Again, I'll have some photos of me inserted in here of using this palette. And I still do like this palette, and again, these 9-pan palettes are $12 from Colourpop, which is great and nice and affordable. But this one I'm almost feeling a little bit stuck with, because I feel like it's kind of hard to do different looks with it. And maybe if, you know, I sat and like looked at the palette a little bit longer, maybe I would have gotten that vibe. But I felt like the mattes were different enough, and then I liked that we had like a yellow shimmer but also a bronzy shimmer, even though that it does pull a little bit more yellow. Like I felt like there could be enough differences in here to get some different looks, but I'm kind of struggling with it. The shade Sunburst is a little bit more of like a funky, kind of has like some green shift to it. And then of course we all know that Palooza is a very chunky glitter. It's not deemed safe for eyes. I have worn it on my eyes. I didn't have any like side effects. It didn't get into my eye at all, which I appreciated. And I thought that it looked nice, but overall it just, I just kind of was like, okay, for me, I still like it. I don't regret purchasing it, especially again at the more affordable price. I feel like it'll be fun to pop into when I do want that yellow look. But if you have some yellows in your eyeshadow palette collection, maybe you have some singles in your collection, you probably don't need this one. And I just, like, I love the monochromatic palettes. I really do, but sometimes I'm like, ooh, if there was just like a little tweak here, or like instead of this shadow there was like this shadow, I feel like it would be better. That's kind of how I feel with the Honey palette. So I still like it. I feel like I've done some cool looks with it. It almost makes me have to be a little bit more creative with my eye looks in order to do different looks. Otherwise I feel like I'm kind of doing the same thing. I've seen a lot of tutorials on YouTube. It feels like a lot of us are doing the same thing, so it's kind of hard to like switch it up a little bit. But those are kind of my thoughts on the Honey palette. And coming in at number 5, I have another of the monochromatic palettes and another one that I needed to put my review in for. That is the Main Squeeze palette. So this one is more of your red toned, kind of like watermelon palette. So again, 9 shades. It does have the mirror, part of the monochromatic palettes. I picked this one up as well from Colourpop. Gosh, yes, I believe I'm saying that correctly. Yes, I picked this one up from Colourpop because I purchased this along with a bunch of lip products. I actually did a 3 looks with this palette in my first video. Any videos that I have, like I have a video with the California Love collection, I have a video with the Honey palette, and I have the 3 looks with this palette. I will have all of those linked down below if you missed them, if you'd want to check out the different looks that I did. So I did also go ahead and purchase this one from the Colourpop website, and I like this one for the shades inside. I just feel like I can get some really cool, like, fiery eye looks. I love reds and corals with green eyes. I just think that looks really pretty. And so I feel like every look I've done with this one, I'm like, ooh, that's a cool look too. I kind of sometimes fall prey to what I said with the Honey palette because it is more monochromatic. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, am I doing the same look? Am I doing the same thing? But I feel like, you know, you have like a pink in here. Juicy Fruit is gold, but it has like a rosy shift to it, which is really neat. Maraschino is a really, really cool shade. You have a lot of nice like red and coral mattes in here that I think are really cool. I quite like this palette. You know, there was just some that I like a little bit more, but we're kind of falling into the middle here, and I think that this is a really nice one too. My only downfall was I felt like sometimes I was doing the same looks, and I wouldn't say that this is a very everyday palette for me, so that was something else that kind of factored into my decision with it, because some days I don't want a really vibrant, look at me, fire red eye look. Some days I want to do something a little bit more on the like neutral side, if you will. But when I want to like kick it up a notch, this is a really cool palette to go with. So I still wanted to like kind of put it high up there, but I really like this one too. Like if you love these colors or you don't have a lot like this in your collection, I would definitely recommend the Main Squeeze for you. So now we are moving over to the top 4, and with 4 and 5 I went back and forth with these two for a little bit. They were really close. I really do like both of them, but I ended up putting the Perception with Makeup Shayla at the number 4 spot, and reason being is I do feel like I can get more looks out of this palette. I like that it has a mirror. In here you have 16 different shades, and again I feel like I can do a little bit more with this palette. You have some nice neutrals in here, you have some nice neutral mattes in here, and then you do also have some shimmers also. To be honest, this palette reminded me a little bit of the Villains palette. Let me hold them together so I can show you, of the Misunderstood palette. So I feel like you get some similar shades, like the bottom row in the Villains palette kind of reminds me of these last two vertical rows over here. But I find the shades in the Perception palette to just be slightly more me and slightly more on the wearable side for me personally. I think we all have, you know, a difference of what wearable means to us, because like the darker shades in here are a lot more darker, or like the shade Facile and even Sing, like they have a lot of glitter to them, so you can kind of get a little bit more fallout, where these are a little bit more like, how do I want to put this, like the glitter is just a little bit finer in these shadows, so you don't get as much fallout, and it's not as like deep of a shade as what's in the Villains palette. But it was kind of interesting as I was getting closer to filming this video and kind of putting all the palettes out. I was like, I don't know if I realized kind of how similar in color scheme these two were. But again, this one is just a little bit more on the wearable side for me. It has a little bit more of the mattes that I enjoy going into. Some of the shimmers, again, they're just a little bit more toned down, which is generally what I prefer for day to day. And then even some of the darker shades, like I mentioned, I just find them to be a little bit easier to work with in the Perception palette versus the Misunderstood. But I did want to point that out because this palette has been out longer, and like I said, I don't believe this one is available. So if you're like, oh man, I really missed that one, and you just wanted it for the shades, not for the Disney collab or the names inside, honestly just pull out your Makeup Shayla, because I do find them to be very similar. But again, I'm just a big fan of this palette. When I first got it, I had really high remarks to say about it, and I still really do enjoy it. So this palette was coming in at number 4. And then in the number 3 spot, this is another monochromatic palette. This is the It's My Pleasure. So this one is the purple palette. Honestly, 3, 2, 1 were really so hard for me, because this is such a nice palette. This, obviously, if you can tell from my ranking system, this is my favorite out of the monochromatic palettes that have been released that I tried for myself. But I do really enjoy purples. Again, I love purples with green eyes. I think it's very flattering. I think it makes my purple eyes pop, and the shades in here are so nice. If you can tell, I'll do some close-ups, but if you can tell, this is a very dirty palette, and I'm very light-handed. I don't tend to get my palettes very dirty, and this one is quite dirty because I've gone into it so many times. I feel like I've created some really fun looks with it, and I like it so much. I love that there's a shade named Chicklet in there, because I have a blog, a book blog. It's Chicklet. Chicklet Plus is my blog. I love reviewing and reading Chicklet books, so I love that that one was in there. Again, you have the 9 shades in the mirror, but the shades in here are so beautiful, and I felt like when I got this palette, like I almost felt like it was a step up of some of the other pressed palettes that I was trying from Colourpop at that time, and I still think that it's so good. I think the shade selection in here is cool. Like, this is one that it is a monochromatic palette, but I still feel like I can do different looks with it versus the red and the yellow palette. Like, I feel like there's enough of a variety in here that I get to do different looks with this one, if that makes sense. So I'm such a fan of the It's My Pleasure palette. It's coming in at number 3. Number 2 and number 1. Whew, I went back and forth. I went back and forth. I opened them, I put them next to each other. I thought, what what am I gonna do here? But at number 2, I ended up going with the Dream Street in collaboration with Kathleen Lights. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, I'm a big fan of this palette. I have recommended it over and over again. I've used it so often. It's popped up in videos. You know, I just did Kathleen Lights made me buy it. Of course, you know, her collaborations were in there for sure. I'm such a fan of this palette. So in here you get the 12 shades. Man, sometimes trying to do math off the top of my head, I'm like 4 times 3. Oh my, please don't get it wrong. But I really like the shades inside. Again, as I was trying to rank them, because I really do enjoy all of these Colourpop palettes. I've had palettes from Colourpop that I haven't loved as much, or felt like I haven't needed, and I have decluttered them out of my collection. So again, I'm only ranking the ones that I currently still have, and I really do like them all. So as I was trying to rank them, I was trying to go by what do I reach for the most, what comes traveling with me, what have I just done so many different looks with, and this one definitely is obviously right up there at number 2, because I love the matte selection in here. I like that we have a lot of neutral mattes that I can do, but then you also have that pop of this corally red, which again, I'm a big fan of that shade. I think that's a lot of fun. I've used these 2 colors as like pops on the lower lash line, which I appreciate, and then you have beautiful shimmers. I love these rose golds. I'm such a fan of that color on the eyelid, so I've gotten a lot of use out of this palette as well, and you guys probably know I'm just a big fan of Dream Street. And so if you can remember from the 8 palettes that I put at the beginning of this video, you know that number 1 is going to the palette that I have on my eyes today. That is the Sweet Talk palette. I love this eyeshadow palette, and I almost did not try it. If I didn't say, I purchased It's My Pleasure, Perception, and also Dream Street. This was sent to me in PR, and I can remember talking about this in a Will I Buy It video, and it was a time where Colourpop had just released so much. I felt like I had just placed an order. Maybe it was for the It's My Pleasure palette, I can't remember, but I was like, you know what, it's too much right now. Like, Colourpop releases too much, I'm too overwhelmed. I'm not gonna pick this one up. And then it got sent to me, and I tried it, and again, I have a video, trying this out for the first time. I swatched all the shades, and I was like, I almost missed out on this palette. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Colourpop had me so fatigued that I almost missed out on my favorite eyeshadow palette. Like, how crazy is that? But again, you get the 12 shades inside, no mirror. It's very similar to the Dream Street, but it is beautiful. It is one of my most reached for eyeshadow palettes as of right now, and I love it. These beautiful matte corals just speak to me. I have Dreammaker, Meadows, and also the Super Shock is on my eyes today. The Super Shock is in side to side. I was actually not a fan seeing the Super Shock shadow in here because I've used those in the past. They tend to dry out very easily, so I thought in a palette like this, that's going to dry out for sure. But Colourpop did say that they reformulate it, especially to be able to put them in palettes. I have that on my eyes today, and I've had this palette for quite some time. I know I filmed that video at our old house, and it still feels I'm not going to say the same, because the first time I used it, it did feel very, very wet, but it still has kind of that more slick feeling to it. It's not dried out, and that very much impresses me. We do have the 2 glitters in here, and that was one thing that I was like, okay, so I don't love glitters in palettes. Should it go to the Dream Street? But honestly, they're really, really pretty glitters, and I have reached into them even after my review period, and I've already tried them. I'm like, you know what? Those glitters were pretty easy to work with in that palette. I'm gonna go ahead and go for it again. I especially like Early Morning, the gold. Very pretty on the eyes, but so is Prima Drama. That's a funny name. Very cool. You have some neat shifting shades in here. Honestly, all around, this palette is just the bomb. Again, it's crazy to me that I almost missed out on this palette because I was just feeling too overwhelmed with Colourpop releases, because I love it. All of the shades inside just really speak to me. I think that they're so beautiful. I love reaching for this one. This is my favorite Colourpop palette at this time. It has dethroned Dream Street as being my number 1 Colourpop palette. It has to go to the Sweet Talk palette. What do you guys think? I'm so curious to get your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of my ranking and some of my reviews on the Colourpop palettes. Thanks to everyone who has requested this one. I've seen a lot of other ranking videos come in, whether it be categories or whether it be, certain items from brands in my collection. So let me know what you'd want to see next. I, of course, would love to know, but can't wait to read your thoughts on this one. It was a lot of fun putting together this video and deciding the rankings for myself. So let me know what you thought. But as always, if you guys did enjoy this video, I hope that you'll give it a thumbs up. I hope that you also consider subscribing before you go, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.